So anything that you want to ask before we start? So I've picked up a particular part for us today, and that's anthropology based passages. Why did I pick up anthropology based passages? Because if you look at the last decade or so of the CAT exam, there are a lot of different areas from which a lot of passages have been asked, but sociology, anthropology, science and tech, biology, these have typically been among the top few. Ecology. So, a lot of logis that are right there up top, and that is why we have it here. And that is why I wanted to prioritize anthropology. So, we talked about philosophy in the last class because that's one area that a lot of people are troubled by, and anthropology because high frequency, and we of course want to go ahead and read more of such things. So since you have been working with me on RCs for a while, let's go ahead and start. So you know that we will go ahead and work on it using two different rounds, right? Round one is where you go on to attempt the passage on your own, and round two is where I come back and join you. So shall we start? Give me a loud yes, and then we'll go ahead and start working on this. So we have Athar, we have Kabilan, we have Yashika. So a lot of regulars here. I really love that. All right, so let's go, Shivanshu. So here is the passage for you. The passage is divided across 4 slides, as you can see here. Once you are done reading it, let me know and I will take you over to the next one. Start. Are we done with this? Should I take you over to the next one? Yes, Athar, absolutely. So that there is no bias, so that when you go ahead attempt a question, you attempt it purely on the basis of your own competence and comfort. Okay, switching in 5 seconds. Slide 2. So are we done or are we done? Okay, 10 seconds and I'll take you to the next one. Here is the switch. Okay, land. Here is the last slide in 5 seconds. So I hope that by now you have managed to read it, and I am ready with my pen and the pad to note down your answers. So are we through? Okay, so here is your question number 1. Tell me. Oops, what's wrong? Accidentally ended up touching the screen. Let me also start the timer so that we are able to keep a track of the time. Okay, so I'm getting A, I'm getting C. We still have 45 seconds more to go. D as well, all right. So don't forget to refer to the passage by going back in the video in order to read the relevant parts. All right, so that's question number 1. Let's get into our next question now. Here you go. Question number 2, and let's begin. Okay, so I'm getting B. Getting B. What else? D. Uh, 90 seconds are up. That's the time limit that I'm generally comfortable with. But since more of us are thinking still, Let me give you that time. Okay. And here comes the next question. Question number 3 on your screen. Go ahead and give me your answer. All right, so I have one answer. Make that 2 answers now, 4 answers. Okay, so A, D, B. All right, A versus B. And here is your last question based on the passage. We start the timer and we'll see. Shivanshu, that was your answer to the third question, right? Okay, so D, all right. So we have 2 answers. Kabilan and Yashika have shared theirs. What about the rest of us? We are edging closer to the 90-second mark and we have managed to reach there. All right, A versus D. Let me jot down 8 as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and attack the passage together. Let's start off by reading it. Where did my pen go? The one that allows me to write on my screen. Where did I leave that? I'd have to pick up the backup one, but it was here. That's a little strange. Anyhow, chale, let's go ahead and make do with this then. So let's start off by reading it now. Western politics has, it is argued, become more tribal. Tribes are distinguished from other human groups by their relatively clear social boundaries, often defined by kinship. Kinship is relationship, connection, and demarcated territory. Demarcated is something which is clearly marked and separate. So if there are two tribes living in close proximity, their territories are divided and both of them know their respective territories rather clearly. So that's demarcated. It is clear that our political groups are increasingly based on single aspects of common identity with unambiguous boundaries. Demarcated territory such as race and educational status. So here the boundaries are boundaries of race and boundary. It can be about, so basically you can form a tribe around race, you can form a tribe around education. So they're just given as examples. Okay, then next, equally undeniable, however, is that most commentators vastly misunderstand the nature of tribes. So we are basically saying Western politics has become more tribal. In what sense, that is given here. And then it says that most commentators who say that we have become tribal, they misunderstand the nature of tribes. So they think of tribes as primitive, violent, insular. What is insular? Insular basically means having a narrow view of the world. Okay, so insular people are people who have probably never left their small town and do not really understand what all is happening in the world around them. So essentially those people, those cultures which are separated from the rest, cut off from the rest, and they do not know about the new ideas, new cultures, especially when they're not even interested in those things. Then this, so it's a negative word on the whole. So the mistaken view of tribes as primitive, violent and insular is already having pernicious effects. Pernicious is harmful. Harmful effects on our response to this new era of politics. If we hope to live productively in this new political era, it helps to understand what tribes actually are and how, rather than simply being the cause of our political problems, tribalism can also contribute to the solution. So our politics is becoming or resembles more the politics of a tribe, but a lot of people think of tribes as backwards, which is mistaken. And if we understand tribes correctly, then it will also provide us for a solution to deal with the current climate that political climate that we have. Okay, then our colloquial evocation of tribalism mostly reflects outmoded anthropology. So colloquial evocation. So what exactly is colloquial? Colloquial is something which is regional, something which is local. So for instance, you notice every region has its own special vocabulary at times. So everybody in that particular geographical area knows about the meanings of those words. They'd use it. People outside of those areas may not really know the meanings of those words. For example, you know how famous Mumbai's cutting chai is, right? So that cutting is essentially what? A colloquialism. So in the contemporary times, the way we describe or define tribalism, it shows outmoded anthropology. What is outmoded? Outmoded is something which is no longer modern, useful or necessary. So outmoded anthropology is anthropology which is, or they at least, it shows their understanding of anthropology is not correct. Scientists once believed that tribes were defined by the rigid social structures which were coercive. When you are coercive, you force people to do something even if they don't want to do it. Tribes were thought to be able to integrate their individual members only through the stultifying and imposed repetition of social customs. So the tribes will force their members to stick to that particular tribe's culture, and the effect of that forcing, that coercion, was stultifying. Okay, when you stultify, you deprive people of strength, efficiency, you make them useless, you make them worthless. But years of empirical studies of actual tribes show that even as they are defined by relatively narrow identities, they're also characterized by porous boundaries. So empirical studies are studies that are based on experience and observation as opposed to basing it on some kind of theory. So a lot of observational studies where people went and looked at the tribes, they realized that yes, they are insular. They have their own specialized identity, but their boundaries are porous. If your boundaries are porous, it means that other things can come into your tribe as well. So, and that's what they say, tribes continually sample one another's practice and social forms. So each tribe goes on to at least look at the customs and the practices that the other tribes have. They will at least bring in and give them a shot and see whether they work or not. Okay. Speaking about American Indians, James Boone, a Princeton anthropologist, noted that each tribal population appears almost to toy with patterns that are fundamental to its neighbors. Just an extension of the previous thought. Then tribes also frequently adopt outsiders. So these boundaries are porous not only with respect to customs and ideas, they are also porous with respect to people. Even the outsiders can come in. Among certain tribes in North Africa, members could voluntarily leave their own tribe. Okay, not just come in, they could also go and join another. Reciprocity too is a central part of traditional tribal life. So reciprocity is where you cooperate with each other. Moral or material indebtedness, they know, can serve as the foundation of a strong relationship. Common among the Berbers of North Africa, for example, for leaders to be chosen or ratified by the group's opponents on the theory that one's current enemy may later be an ally. So you are choosing a leader of your own group on the basis of what your opponent has to say. Imagine that. Okay, so huge difference. And then next, many tribes, among them the Mayanga of Papua New Guinea and the Lozi of Central Africa, also share the common practice of marrying members of enemy tribes. This is pretty simple. The likelihood of internecine warfare. Internecine is something which is mutually harmful. Warfare, that so if two countries go on war with each other, both the countries actually get harmed. So internecine. As a result of intermarriage and trading relations, a high proportion of tribes are multilingual. Okay, nor are tribes inherently authoritarian. Now, what do you mean by authoritarian? This is one word that we do keep coming across in the world around us. So authoritarian, so basically if the ruler of a particular country demands that people of the country obey him completely, and he refuses to allow any freedom to the people to act. For example, think of North Korea and you'd get the drift, right? So see, tribes are not exactly authoritarian. So it's not that the leader will have an ultimate say and everybody will have to follow him. Tribes often do not like too much power in too few hands for too long a period of time. So tribes are by nature against authoritarianism and hence employ a wide variety of practices that redistribute power. This might sound quite distant from the partisan tribes of our present politics. What is partisan? Very commonly used word. Partisan, you can link it with partial. So if there is a person who strongly supports somebody, so let's say here is a person, he strongly supports some other person, some political party, some principle, without considering or judging the matter very carefully. So he just supports something blindly in a way. So you call such people partisans. So this might sound quite distant from the partisan times of our present politics. So in our present politics, we are saying that our tribes are partisan, which means that people who support their tribe, they don't even think that their tribe could be wrong. They just go ahead and blindly support them, which seem mostly to be characterized by their pugnaciousness. Pugnaciousness is, quarrel, people who are quarrelsome, who are willing to pick up a fight. So pugnaciousness is the tendency to go and fight. But the point is that anthropologically narrow identity groups such as tribes are not defined by exclusionary traits. The existence of narrow group identities does not imply hostility among such groups. So far, whatever has been told to us about the tribes, they are pretty open, porous boundaries, they listen to others, they are not authoritarian. But the present day tribes have become partisan. They don't listen to others. And this is where we can learn from the tribes of the past. Indeed, there is a reason that tribes historically have not embraced the rigid structural identities and institutions evident in our politics today. So excluding immigrants or cultural outsiders in the name of social solidarity comes at a price. Actual tribes know that social isolation limits their flexibility, but we can only sustainably avoid paying such costs when we understand that resorting to defensive boundaries, even when we have gone tribal, is not our natural default position. So once again, an extension of the previous paragraph where we say that the actual tribes would not behave in the way we behave nowadays. If politicians and ordinary citizens insist on using tribal metaphors to define our present identity politics, we need a more apt metaphor to understand tribes themselves. So he's saying that, okay, if you continue to describe the way you function today as if you were a tribe, and you are not really behaving in a way that tribes behave, then you need to look for some other metaphor. We could do worse than to think of tribes as amoebas, entities whose very shape adapts to fit changing circumstances. What do you understand by this? We could do worse than to think of something. It's a very commonly used idiom. So when you say you could do worse than, it basically means that there is a choice, there is an action that you've opted for which is quite good, which is quite satisfactory. It may not be the best option, but given the scenario, it is the best one. So here, when you say we could do worse than to think of tribes as amoebas, so you say, yeah, we should think of tribes as amoebas who adapt themselves to changing circumstances. Okay, so that was our passage. If there is a particular part that you want me to explain further, let me know. Here are your answers and I'll go ahead check those. What mistaken understanding of the tribalism is the author talking about? So look at the second paragraph which had this line, the mistaken view of tribes as primitive, violent, insular. Right? Now which answer comes closest to it? The fact that the structure of the tribes has long been misunderstood to be largely coercive or rigid? Absolutely. Hang on, I'll just take you back. So this is one part, right? And then elsewhere, if you look at the fourth paragraph, fifth paragraph, you'd find these other references which will say that, hey, in fact, let me take you back. This is just one of the places where it was written explicitly. If we continue it further, you notice tribes were coercive, and this is outmoded anthropology. So we are wrong. That's another place where we are wrong. When tribes have porous boundaries, they are not insular, they actually have porous boundaries. They listened to the outsiders and people were free to go out and come back in. And then there are these specific examples. So if you combine all of these together, you'd realize that A is definitely mentioned. None of you have chosen B, so I'm eliminating it. C. Mistaken understanding of tribalism is that tribes are actually more democratic than the rest of the world. Do we believe that tribes are more democratic than the rest of the world? Our mistaken belief was that they are authoritarian. The author went on to tell us that they are not. So our belief was not that they are democratic, our mistaken belief was that they are authoritarian. So you can rule this out. D, the understanding that tribes are actually receptive to the outside world. We believed that tribes are not open to other tribes, that they are insular. Did we believe that they are receptive? No. Our mistaken belief was that they are insular, that they are authoritarian. These were not even our beliefs and therefore they could be ruled out, and that leads to A as our best answer. Okay, here is the next one. Question number 2. What inference can be drawn from the following lines? Our colloquial evocation of tribalism mostly reflects outmoded anthropology. We have chosen B and D. Everybody ruled out A and C. So let's see. Our usual and familiar evocation of tribalism has many distortions. So the way we think of tribalism is wrong. That's how we'd interpret it. So this is true. Let's look at D. Our innate tendency to associate tribalism with violence and inept social customs represent the failure of anthropology as a reliable science. This part is right, but then where are we getting this from? It just says that it reflects outmoded anthropology. So every subject grows, changes its opinions. So anthropology has changed its stance already. We are holding on to an outdated stance. We are holding on to the outdated stance. The subject is not wrong. The subject has moved on. So to say that anthropology has failed as a reliable science, that is wrong. And therefore, the final label, when you see an option in an inference-based question where a part of it is true, a part of it is false, the final label that we apply to it is always false. And that is why D can be ruled out and B should be chosen as our answer. Let's look at the next one now. Which of the following is true regarding the tribes of Papua New Guinea and Central Africa? Let's check. So here are these tribes. So Mayanga, Lozi of Central Africa, common practice of marrying members of enemy tribes to reduce the likelihood of internecine warfare. High proportion of tribes are multilingual. So which one do I choose? So let's start. So I got A, B and D, everybody ruled out C, so I'm not looking at that. They promote inter-race marriages. Where are we getting inter-race marriages? We are getting marriages between tribes. Inter-tribe marriage, yes. Inter-race marriage, nope. They are strictly against violence of any sort, cannot be determined on the basis of this. Does it mention anything about violence? Nope. So can't be determined. D. So if this is not true, this is not true, what are you left with? You're left with none of the above. See? So if I change this race to tribe, intertribal, then A would be right, otherwise it won't really be right. Okay? So D it is. It's very rare for me to give you a question where none of the above is going to be the right answer, and it's good to at least have it once in a while so that at the back of our mind we always remain primed. And here comes the last question. Which of the following is true regarding the Berbers of North Africa? This is mostly a specific detail question. So if you refer to the 5th paragraph of the passage, this is what you know about Berbers. It is common amongst the Berbers of North Africa, for example, for leaders to be chosen or ratified by the group's opponents on the theory that one's current enemy may later be an ally. So this is all that we know about Berbers. Let us start. They believe in accepting the outsiders to promote cultural exchange. Not mentioned. The members have the right to switch between tribes as per their convenience. Yeah, but is it referred with respect to the Berbers? There were some tribes that did that. Did Berbers do that? We don't know. Right? They rely on the consent of the rival tribes. I mean, this is very generalized. Ideally, if you give me none of the above, I'll choose that, but I have to choose one. So I at least on the basis of this example know that when it comes to choosing their leaders, they do rely on the consent of their opponents, their rival tribes, at least in that one context. So that makes C the best answer choice. Kabilan, okay, I'll take you back to the first paragraph, and then once I show it to you, you tell me whether what you're saying is right or not. Here you go. Here is the first paragraph. Where does it say that tribes are based on the concepts of race, education? What it says is, it is clear that our political groups are based on things, and that too, these are examples such as race, such as education. Where does it say tribes? Right? So there you go. So therefore, that inter-race thing of C, I'm assuming that this is what the one that you wanted to support through that, will not really apply here, because What is the question asking about? Question is asking about the tribes of Papua New Guinea and Central Africa. You're not being asked about, you're asked about these. You're not being asked about what the modern political groups do. So therefore, our answer here is, in that question we already settled it, the best answer here is C, and that's where we stop today. You know that you can reach me later in the group if you need me. And before I sign out, I just wanted to leave you with this wonderful little thought, and I want to tell you that you've got it. You have it in you to succeed. So I believe in you, and I hope that you also constantly, consistently keep on believing in you. So that's it for today, and I will go ahead and meet you in the next one with another set of questions to help you grow further. Take care and have a nice evening. See you. Thank you, Rajkumar. Okay, Atar.